Mr. Immortal, the greatest healing powers in Marvel, comes at a price. One of the most practical powers that a hero can possess is that of healing. Because if they can recover from the damage that they have been dealt quickly enough, there is nothing stopping them, and beating them once and for all becomes a near impossible task. When we think of mutants with the best healing factors, popular names such as Wolverine and Deadpool tend to pop up. And while they have excellent regenerative abilities, there is one lesser known, underrated superhero whose healing factor is arguably the best of all time. Marvel Comics introduced a hero called Mr. Immortal in the year 1989, when John Byrne took over writing and drawing the West Coast Avengers, starting with issue number 46. A character that was first introduced lightheartedly has evolved into one with a dark backstory and a healing factor that is intertwined with the universe itself. Today's video is about Mr. Immortal. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin. The one that introduced Mr. Immortal in style. The first comic book appearance explored. Issue number 46 of the West Coast Avengers introduced us to Mr. Immortal and gang. The book opens with a costumed hero who intervenes in a bank robbery, skillfully evading their attacks and taking them out in style. But his gymnastics and fighting abilities were only effective for a short time before the burglars shot him down, killing him. Or so they thought. The thieves then realize their hostages are being rescued by a flat, stretching ribbon, and they themselves were being stalled by a gigantic obese woman who is immune to their bullets, as well as a flying dinosaur woman who flies directly into the bank through the wall. As they try to flee, they are then confronted by the hero that they thought they had shot dead, who begins to thrash them mercilessly. The flat hero who saved the hostages restrains him until the dinosaur lady uses her hypersonic voice to calm him down. When the heroes appear in front of the Milwaukee television news cameras, they introduce themselves as the Great Lakes Avengers. The first segment shows a couple of important things: the composition of the Great Lakes Avengers, all their different powers and abilities, and most importantly, how Mr. Immortal's healing ability is super useful in combat situations. However, it also shows that the regeneration takes a toll on him, making him more violent and angry, with only Dinosaur being able to calm him down. The news of the new team of Avengers spreads like wildfire and reaches the ears of the real Avengers, who don't take very lightly to their name being used, and thus come Hawkeye and Mockingbird to check in on the GLA. Hawkeye and Mockingbird take a trip to Milwaukee to see the Great Lakes Avengers. The Great Lakes Avengers arrive in Milwaukee at the Germania building, where an APB has been triggered by an unexplained light show. Doorman uses his abilities to turn his body into a portal, allowing Flatman to enter the building without causing any damage. Dinosaur flies atop the building, where she's caught in a net and uses her whistle to alert her teammates. Mr. Immortal rides Big Bertha's back in response to the call, and she uses her mighty bulk to lift him to the building's roof, before comfortably falling down to the ground, leveling herself out, shielded by her great mass. Mr. Immortal is confronted at the top of the building by Hawkeye, who Mr. Immortal believes to be an imposter in Hawkeye's costume. When Mockingbird reacts to Mr. Immortal's attack, kicking him, he mistakenly believes that she is an imitator as well and leaps to his death from the roof. This makes her question herself, and then, out of concern, Mockingbird inquires about Mr. Immortal's death, and it is here that the Flatman informs her that he is immortal, and thus the lack of worry from their side when their teammate literally jumped to his death. Later, at Big Bertha's luxurious home, which serves as the Great Lakes Avengers headquarters, she discloses that she used to be a high-paid supermodel with a superpower. Hawkeye analyzes the situation and sees the Great Lakes Avengers as a serious group of heroes and decides that by leading them, he can turn them into one heck of a team, thus actually acknowledging the powers of Mr. Immortal and gang. Not a bad introduction for our immortal superhero. All his skills are on show in this one. The price of immortality. Origins Explored. Craig Hollis is the name of the man that went on to become Mr. Immortal. Death Urge, a cosmic entity, had been a part of his life ever since he was a newborn, and this foreshadowed what was to come. Death Urge is an entity that acts as Oblivion's herald, bringing and assisting death. He acts almost benevolently as an angel of death, guiding souls to whatever lies ahead for them in the afterlife. In other cases, he furthers Oblivion's goals across the universe, suffocating anyone who stands in their way. Death Urge first appeared in Craig's life when he was a newborn baby, right before his mother's untimely death. Death Urge promised his mother that he would look after Craig, and he did so in his own special way. Ever since then, Death Urge was dubbed D-Urge by Craig, and the two grew close over time. Everyone assumed D-Urge was a fictitious friend, but what was extremely concerning was the fact that Death Urge constantly urged Craig to put his life in danger. For example, playing on the road in oncoming traffic. However, every attempt on the boy's life was foiled, and he would always get saved one way or another. Things took a horribly wrong turn when Death Urge prompted Craig into a daring stunt on his 8th birthday. The stunt involved first setting his house on fire and thereafter telling Craig to stay hidden under the house even though it was burning down. The firemen eventually rescued Craig, but he was forced to watch Death Urge take his father to the afterlife as he died as a result of the fire. Death Urge stopped visiting Craig after this incident, and Craig had to move away because he was adopted by another family. Mr. O'Dugan, his new father, was an abusive man, but Craig stayed strong because Terry, Mr. O'Dugan's daughter, was in his life. She was his first true friend, and their friendship blossomed into love. They planned to shift out of the house and live solely on love because they were incredibly in love with each other. Craig had to put in long, tough hours, but he persevered until Terry left, leaving only a Dear John letter on the table. Death Urge reappeared, and this confirmed the fact that Terry had not just left, she had actually committed suicide. Craig, bereft of his loved ones, begged Death Urge to take him as well, but Death Urge rejected his pleas and left a hopeless, miserable Craig. Craig wanted to commit suicide, and his first attempt resulted in him surviving a fall from a very tall building. Every subsequent attempt at suicide, from using explosives to drowning, failed, and he realized he just could not die. Craig discovered his calling and decided to become a superhero after seeing the incredible potential of having superpowers. Mr. Immortal was born as a result of his realization. Thus, Craig's backstory is a dark and twisted one, having witnessed the death of all of his loved ones and living with the knowledge that he would never receive the sweet kiss of death and would always outlive all the people he ever loved. This was the true price of immortality. Mr. Immortal as the leader of the Great Lakes Avengers. Another Avengers? Yes, you heard me right. Craig adopted the moniker Mr. Immortal as a result of his newly discovered ability. Mr. Immortal then decided to become a superhero and fight crime. And his first outing as a superhero was attempting to thwart a bank robbery. Mr. Immortal was gunned down and left for dead during the incident. He obviously didn't die. Instead, he decided that forming a team would allow him to put his abilities to better use, because, while he was immortal, he could use some help on other abilities like speed and strength. As a result, he forms the Great Lakes Avengers, a regional offshoot of the Avengers based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, with Mr. Immortal as its leader after placing an advertisement. Flatman, Doorman, Big Bertha, Dinosaur, and Leatherboy were all the other founding members of the team. Craig grew to love Dinosaur over time, as he was the only one who could communicate with her in her native tongue. They turned out to be soulmates, and he was her ageless lover, as she had a degree of immortality herself. The Great Lakes Avengers met Hawkeye and Mockingbird, who were conducting investigations into their unofficial Avengers franchise, after they had already been working together for a while. The official Avengers chose to stay on and assist the GLA in their training, and Hawkeye even attempted to gain formal status from both branches. The Great Lakes Avengers aided the Avengers on occasions, such as rescuing the abducted Scarlet Witch or trying to delay the arrival of Terminus. The team also battles the mercenary Deadpool after assisting the Thunderbolts against the villain Graviton. Interestingly, they spend most of their time playing cards when they're not out fighting crime, making them a quite wholesome superhero team, huh? Mr. Immortal and the GLA then changed their name to the Lightning Rods after the Avengers vanished against Onslaught, in order to capitalize on the new heroes, the Thunderbolts' fame. When the Thunderbolts were discovered to be the masters of evil, this proved to be a mistake. After that, the Lightning Rods teamed up with S.H.I.E.L.D. to hunt down the renegade Thunderbolts. Craig was on the verge of disbanding the GLA. However, he reconsidered when he learned that the real Avengers had disbanded, causing him to joyfully proclaim that they were now the real Avengers. Dinosaur, unfortunately, was killed in their next battle with Maelstrom, and Death Urge reappeared to take her to the afterlife. His and Death Urge's previous friendship came to a bitter end as a result of this. Mr. Immortal would run into Death Rage once more at Dinosaur's funeral, where Death Urge voiced his regret and demonstrated that he had genuinely come to love Mr. Immortal as his son. Mr. Immortal, on the other hand, was tremendously angry at Death Urge for taking away everything he had ever loved and cared about, and attacks Death Urge, but to no avail. Craig then falls into a deep, depressive episode, repeatedly drinking heavily, attempting to kill himself inside GLA headquarters while dressed as Dinosaur. All the while, others look on. Later, Leatherboy, disguised as Dr. Doom, infiltrated the team's headquarters and killed Monkey Joe, Squirrel Girl's sidekick. When Death Urge showed up in the form of a squirrel to take away Monkey Joe, his squirrel form left him defenseless, and Craig was able to get his revenge by trapping him in the body of a squirrel. Death Urge then revealed to Craig his destiny to outlive everybody as the one true immortal, and then discover the magnificent secret that will be disclosed at the end of time. Death Urge had tried to prepare Craig by taking away some of his loved ones, so that he might truly live up to this ultimate fate, and the villain Maelstrom was at the point where he could indeed take away that purpose, ending the universe prematurely. This gave Mr. Immortal renewed vigor and purpose, and he decided to stop Maelstrom at any cost. The GLA barged into Maelstrom's base, and it was Mr. Immortal who saved the universe in the end, albeit at the expense of his companion, Doorman. Getting close to Maelstrom, Mr. Immortal was able to play on his emotions, knowing that Maelstrom would be the only one left in the end, and that was the big secret. Maelstrom was frightened by the thought and sought a way out, which Mr. Immortal provided. The way out was suicide. Maelstrom killed himself, not knowing that Mr. Immortal would be able to recover from his injury while he would die for good. And Craig was able to hit that button that prevented the machine Maelstrom had designed to bring the universe to an end. The GLA saved everyone but received none of the credit. Even though they were forced to drop the Avengers moniker, the group preserved and became the GLX. This is short for the Great Lakes X-Men, once they found out that all members were mutants. The GLX later went on many more adventures. What makes him so powerful? Immortality is no small feat. Many have tried to achieve it over the centuries, and now we have one such being that is truly immortal and can come back from any injury whatsoever, making him an immensely powerful being. He is also an extremely skilled acrobat and athlete. Mr. Immortal is the only known person of the Homo supreme species which evolved after Homo sapiens or regular humans, and Homo superior or mutants. Retroactive immortality is the name of his special ability. And this is because Mr. Immortal has the ability to resurrect himself and heal himself, no matter how he is killed. He can resurrect himself very quickly, often within a matter of seconds or minutes. Additionally, he doesn't seem to age at all. It has been seen that after being shot, crushed, exploded, drowned, incinerated, poisoned, decapitated, irradiated, and stabbed, he always has made a full recovery. Mr. Immortal is destined to live to see the end of the universe according to Death Urge. However, there is always a downside to dying and coming back so many times. Mr. Immortal is frequently enraged after resurrecting due to the pain of death and resurrection, and this fact happens to be his only known weakness. So to really understand the true extent of his power, it is important to compare and contrast his healing ability with that of other Marvel characters, such as Wolverine and Deadpool. Wolverine and Deadpool's abilities to heal are linked to their biology, with Wolverine being due to his mutation and Deadpool being due to genetic enhancements. Mr. Immortal's abilities are, on the other hand, very complex. On one level, they are the result of a mutation, but on a much deeper level, they also have a cosmic component. Franklin Richards is set to be the next form of the Galactus in the next cycle of creation, as previously stated. This is an important role in the Marvel Universe because it keeps creation balanced. Mr. Immortal is the backup, which is a crucial role. As a result, the universe needs Mr. Immortal to continue living, and it will do whatever it takes to keep him alive, whether it means enlisting the Death Urge's help or transforming him into a Homo Supreme. The healing factor of Deadpool and Wolverine are essential to who they are, but Mr. Immortal, who appears to have the universe's protection, has the best healing factor in the Marvel Universe. Mr. Immortal is thus quite the underrated superhero, despite having what many people have died trying to acquire: immortality. His healing abilities easily put Deadpool's and Wolverine's regeneration powers to shame and put him on the map whenever it comes to heroes that are near impossible to defeat. He has been killed, brutally murdered even countless times, but he has always returned. So what do you think about Mr. Immortal? And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everybody.